What if everything you ever knew vanished overnight? The sun rises, but your world is already gone. The birds stop singing. The power goes out. Your neighbors? Vanished. And the worst part? The enemy isn't coming. They're already here. In the fifth wave, humanity faces a nightmare in stages. Each wave more terrifying, more destructive, and more ruthless than the last. Earth is under siege by an alien force that strikes with precision, stripping away what makes us human, one devastating blow at a time. First, they take the lights, then the oceans. Now, they want us. Join me as we dive into this thrilling tale of survival, betrayal, and the fight for what little hope remains. But beware, in this world, no one is who they seem. This is the fifth wave, and the battle for Earth has only just begun. Now let's start the movie. At the beginning of the movie, we see a girl named Cassie, who is running with a gun in her hand. While running, she reaches a store next to a gas station. There, she starts gathering food. After a while, she senses the presence of something behind her. When she turns around, she sees a man hiding in a corner of the room, looking scared. The man points his gun at Cassie, and she also points her gun at him. At that moment, we see that the man is actually injured. He lowers his gun and asks Cassie for help. His hand was inside his jacket, and when he pulls it out, something shiny appeared. Mistaking it for a gun, Cassie shoots him, and the man dies as a result. When Cassie checks his hand, she finds a cross, which he was trying to show her. This causes Cassie deep pain, as she realizes she has killed an innocent man. Then, in a flashback, we see a time when the world was still normal. We see Cassie at a school party where she was having fun with friends and discussing her crush, Ben, with one of her girlfriends. After the party, when she leaves to head home, she runs into her crush, Ben. They joke around and have a good time together. The next morning, while Cassie was practicing football at school, her friend showed her a video. Due to being busy, she didn't pay much attention to it. Later, when she returned home, she saw the video on TV, where an alien ship was landing on Earth. Although the ship didn't land directly on the ground, it stirred a lot of curiosity and caused chaos throughout the city. It was announced to everyone that there were creatures on the ship that looked like humans, so the townspeople had named them Others. After seeing the news on TV, Cassie's brother quickly ran outside and stood in shock, looking up at the sky. As her family noticed him going outside, they all followed and looked up to see the alien ship. Since the ship was massive, they were quite scared. The fact that the ship was hovering directly over their town made them even more terrified. Then we see Cassie at school, when suddenly the lights go out. The phone in her hand also stopped working. When they looked outside, they noticed that all electrical devices had stopped functioning. Cars on the road were crashing into one another, and a passenger plane in the sky suddenly crashed into the ground. Then, everyone realizes that the incident is primarily caused by the alien ship. They see that a wave had emerged from the ship, which caused all electricity on Earth to stop working. Since no one could communicate with each other and the police couldn't destroy the ship with missiles, people started gathering in the city, leaving the town behind. We then see Cassie and her brother collecting water in bottles from a pond when another wave comes from the ship, triggering natural disasters across the planet. Trees around them started breaking on their own, and the river became turbulent. An earthquake occurred where Cassie and her brother were. In coastal cities, massive waves created tsunamis, swallowing entire towns into the sea. Some people managed to save themselves by climbing onto the rooftops of houses. Cassie and her brother climbed a tree and somehow survived the disaster. Then, we see the third wave emerging from the alien ship, causing a virus to spread across the entire world. The virus primarily spread through birds. Those infected by the virus were being gathered in one place, where doctors were treating them. Since Cassie's mother was a doctor, Cassie went to see her. Not wearing a mask, her mother gave her one to wear. An officer nearby saw Cassie wandering around openly and escorted her out, as everyone except Cassie was infected with the virus. But who would have known that this would be her last meeting with her mother? A few days later, Cassie's mother passed away. Afterward, we see that people all over the world begin to die one by one. Those who survived the virus started gathering in a refugee camp in the forest. Cassie's father, along with her younger brother, began living there. That night, Cassie's father gives her a gun and tells her to use it when she senses danger around her. A few days later, a group from the army arrives at their camp and informs them that from now on, they are responsible for their safety. Everyone is pleased to hear this. The first thing the army does is separate all the children and take them to a bus. Cassie's father asks the army why they are doing this. The army officer explains that the fourth wave is coming, through which the aliens will take control of all of us. Since it's easier to control children, they are being kept separately. The strange behavior of the army raises suspicion, and as families of the children are forced into a room, everyone starts panicking. The army then begins to shoot them. Outside the door, Cassie's father sees Cassie approaching their room. At that moment, Cassie's father signals her to leave the place. Then we see the army shooting and killing everyone. A little while later, Cassie enters the room and finds her father's dead body, and she starts crying. There, she finds a gun from one of the soldiers. This makes her vow that since her parents have been killed, she must save her brother. So she starts following the army's vehicle. The army takes all the children to their camp. Along with conducting medical tests on everyone, they also give each child a token. At one point, we see Ben, who is undergoing a medical test. The doctor tells him that the aliens primarily control humans' brains, and then use humans to kill other humans, which is why these medical tests are being conducted. At that moment, a drug is injected into Ben's neck. Then a child is shown in front of him who has been taken over by aliens, and Bean is told to shoot and kill the child. Following the army's orders, he shoots and kills the child. After that, we see Cassie as she is exiting the store next to the gas station. She notices a drone in the sky ahead of her, and suddenly, someone shoots her in the leg, causing her to fall unconscious on the spot. Then, we see a scene at the army camp where an army officer is saying, "You must prepare for the 5th wave, so your training will start from today." On the other hand, we see a boy named Evan bringing Cassie to his home. As Cassie regains consciousness, she asks about her gun. Evan tells her he didn't find any gun. Then, Cassie asks him about the way to the army camp. Afterward, Cassie tells Yvonne everything that happened. At the army camp, it is revealed that Cassie's brother was part of Bean's team. 4 people were grouped into each team, and they were playing cards. At that moment, a new girl named Ringa joins them, who is skilled at handling guns. Meanwhile, outside, Cassie watches Ivan and begins searching the entire house to find out what kind of person he is. A while later, she finds her gun on the floor, which makes her suspicious of Ivan. She then starts to flee. As soon as she reaches the forest, Ivan catches up to her. Cassie thought Ivan would harm her, but in reality, Ivan had saved her from the Ardesses. Ivan then brings her back home. He explains that he was scared she might shoot him, which is why he had hidden her gun. Ivan then tells her, "I will help you find your brother." On the way to the army camp, Ivan starts training Cassie on how to defend herself. Meanwhile, at the army camp, Officer Bean is called and ordered to go on a mission with his team. The officer gives him some helmets equipped with sensors that can identify others. However, the officer also informs him that these helmets are not fully developed yet, and they are being tested through their use. On the other hand, we see that as Cassie and Ivan spend more time together, they develop a romantic relationship and eventually become intimate. Meanwhile, Bean sets out on the mission with his team. He locks Cassie's brother in the bathroom since he is still a child. After a while, they reach their destination. There, they see the Ardas being controlled through helmets. By looking at the head of the person in front through the helmet, they realize that they are under the influence of the Ardas. A heated discussion ensues between the two sides, and at one point, a girl named Renga sets a bus on fire to divert the Ardas' attention. After that, they hide in a certain location. In fact, Renga had been on a mission before, which is why she has become annoyed with all this. Therefore, she removes her helmet so that the army cannot track her. As soon as Renga removes the tracker, the others see that she looks like Ardas. Everyone aims their guns at her. However, Ben calms everyone down and removes his own tracker, making him also look like the Ardas. At that moment, everyone realizes the army's true strategy. Then they realize that the aliens' 5th web is to use children to kill everyone who is still alive. Since children are very easy to control, if they are shown something to fear, they become ready to do whatever is asked of them. They understand that the Ardas have essentially taken control of the soldiers. As a result, Bean's team all removes their trackers. Meanwhile, we see Cassie and Ivan being attacked by the Ardas. At that moment, Ivan saves Cassie. Cassie notices that Ivan has some unique powers. She then realizes that Ivan is also one of the Ardas. Ivan continues to explain to Cassie that even though he is an alien, he does not want to harm humans, because she is enchanted by human love. Cassie starts to move away from Yvonne in fear. Yvonne then tells her that he was sent to Earth a long time ago. They came to this world based on our information. The aliens actually believe that human love is essentially a trap that poses a threat to them. However, after interacting with humans, my perception has completely changed. I cannot change this alone. I have been following you from the pump, always trying to save you. You are misunderstanding me. Cassie, still not believing him, continues to walk away. Ivan then tells her that even your army's head officer is under the control of the Ardas. He is using these children to kill the people of this world. After that, Cassie heads towards the army camp and sits on a bus that will take her to the camp. Then they examine him thoroughly like a bean and attach a tracker, while the doctor keeps lying to him. Since Cassie knows everything, she kills the doctor right there and puts on his clothes to search for her brother. Meanwhile, Officer Bean calls in, Since he has learned everything, they arrest him. When they take Bean to jail, there's an explosion behind them, and in that chaos, Bean kills the officer with him. Then Cassie and Bean confront each other. Cassie starts to think that Bean is under the influence of aliens, so she points her gun at him. At that moment, Bean begins to explain everything, and Cassie realizes he is not under their control. Together, they start searching for Cassie's brother. Just then, Ivan arrives and says he caused the explosion. He informs them that the army has planted a bomb here, which will explode in 10 minutes. They have to do whatever they can within that 10 minutes. Ivan tells Cassie to search for her brother. After a little while, she finds her brother, and they escape outside the army camp. As they are fleeing, the area begins to be destroyed gradually. An army officer spots them, so he starts shooting at them with his helicopter. Meanwhile, Renga arrives in an army vehicle and rescues them. They then move to a safe location where there are a few others like them. Together, they decide to save all the children who are in the army's hands, and this is where the movie ends. Thank you, friends. We will meet again with another movie explanation. Until then, stay healthy.